Hi, everybody. Welcome to the SalesIntel show, the pipeline pioneers, where our goal, our mission is to help the community learn from the leaders, from the practitioners, and from the experts as to how to generate the most optimal pipeline for your business. As we know, pipeline is the heartblood of any organization, and generating pipeline is a team sport. It's not just the responsibility of a BDR team or the marketing or the AE. It truly takes a village to come together to build a pipeline that ultimately converts into revenue. Today, I'm excited to have Logan with me. Logan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Logan, to kick things off, why don't you tell the audience about your role, your business, and how in your role do you help influence the pipeline generation for your business?
Yeah, so I am on the brand team within the marketing org at teamwork.com, and we're in the project management and professional services automation space. So we're a SaaS platform that allows especially service-based companies to manage client work from tasks and to-dos to profitability and time tracking. And I really, on the brand team, I do a few different things. I host a bi-weekly podcast called Agency Life, and work with a lot of influencers and some of our evangelists in the community that we serve, to create value added content for various channels there. And so, really, I kind of see our job on the brand team is our impact on pipeline is making sure that the pipeline that does get into our funnel actually, one, there's more of it because there's more brand awareness that we're creating through those activities, but two, that it converts at a higher rate because we want to educate a lot of the market that maybe isn't aware of us well before they're in buying mode, right? In B2B, they say 95 to 97% of your market, of your target market, is not in market, in buying mode right now, but so often we only focus on that 3 to 5% that's in market. So being on the brand team, our job is focusing on that 95 to 97% so that then when they become the 3 to 5%, that's pipeline that converts at a higher rate.
Makes sense. So you are using brand and content as a
Mhm.
mechanism to influence the pipeline. That's great.
Yep.
Um, so Logan, last year was hard for lots of companies, right? There was not enough pipelines. That were there were
Mhm.
not closing at the same rates, and as a
Yep.
result, lots of companies missed their revenue targets, right?
Mhm.
And along the way, macroeconomic headwinds were so strong. We all made a mistake. Look, just a perfect bad storm, right? When you look back, is this something that jumps out and
Mhm.
the learning from that mistake that you or someone from your business might have made that you would like to share with the community?
Yeah, I think it ties to that 97 and 3% that we were just talking about a second ago, because I'll never forget this. It was a member of our demand gen team, was kind of looking at some of our marketing activities and how focused we were on conversion and less on consideration and awareness. And he said, I'll never forget. It's like we're running around trying to hug strangers at times, and we're just going out there and we're doing these really a lot of demand capture activities, trying to convert cold audiences. But for a lot of those audiences, they were people who had never heard of our brand, weren't familiar with us, and definitely didn't have any affinity toward our brand. So I think that was a major challenge for us, and we're doing some things to try and shift that. And I think for any other brand that is not yet investing as much in brand awareness and demand creation as much as they are demand capture, that can really be a problem. And you typically see that not only in shrinking pipeline, but in, as you mentioned, pipeline that's not converting at the higher rate, or you're seeing pipeline that comes in, but you're not on their short list already, and so your sales team can really feel it that they have an uphill battle to close those deals that even are in their pipeline.
That's right. That's right. So that's a great insight. I love your analogy of trying to hug the strangers, right? At least make them friends first before you
Yes.
or the right to
You gotta
hug them.
wave to them. You gotta say hi. You gotta start a conversation, and then maybe you ask for a hug. But we're on step like 5, 6, 7, and we're jumping straight there. Maybe not proposing, but
Yeah.
I don't want a hug from a stranger, and I don't think anybody else does either.
Yes, yeah, I love that analogy. Well, New Year's, new budgets, new experiments. What are you most excited about for 2024? Is there anything new that you're trying to generate the pipeline?
hmm Yeah. So, as I mentioned at the open, part of my role at teamwork.com is hosting our biweekly podcast, Agency Life. In January, we really realized, hey, this is a great way for us to get in front of that 97% of the audience. And we had done a lot to create great content, have people on the show that were part of our ICP or influencers who are serving the same ICP, but we really hadn't done enough to really distribute that content. And so we're experimenting with LinkedIn ads to put the podcast episodes out in front of people, display ad campaigns, and then even looking at how do we leverage the personal brands on our team, looking at LinkedIn thought leader ads to share that content and that thought leadership with, again, people who are strangers that we want to at least start waving to and saying hi to. And so putting actual, paid spend behind brand awareness things as opposed to, again, just bottom of the funnel conversion elements, I think are new for us. And so far, we've seen some audience growth with our podcast. We're looking at expanding. How do we dip our toes in the water of YouTube and figure out as we look at where our ICP spends time, what sort of content they engage with there. How can that be a new channel for us? So just starting out there, LinkedIn and podcasting really have been my two primary marketing channels. So I'm looking forward to learning and experimenting more there. But the tests we've run have already been somewhat interesting.
Oh, that's great. Speaking of channels, the perfect transition to our working exercise here. I'm going to share my screen here with you. Um,
Yeah,
all right,
all set.
Logan. As you mentioned that what we are constantly trying out different channels. The growth doesn't come from one channel, so you have to experiment. So this exercise is exactly that. You have 100 pennies on the left hand side. Each coin is worth 10 cents, and your goal is to distribute these 100 pennies across multiple channels with the eye on ultimately building, creating the pipeline that converts into revenue. So how will you
Mhm.
distribute these pennies?
Yeah. So, unsurprisingly, for everybody who's been listening so far, big brand builder, sort of marketer here. So, I'm going to go ahead and put 4 pennies right on brand, right
Love it.
out of the gate there. Um,
I love your
Behind that,
concentration and focus of investment.
yes. What's the old saying? Like, focus to build wealth and then diversify to maintain it, right? I
Yes.
think so often we try to diversify to build wealth. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I would say behind that, I would say partnership led growth. Let's put 2 pennies there.
That's
And there to me, it might sound surprising to folks there, but I think with the brand led growth there's opportunity for partnerships, not just in kind of like reseller partnerships, as everybody thinks about in B2B, but what about influencer, creator partnerships, evangelists out there in the market? And so I think that ties with brand really well. And
Yep.
then I would put 2 on community and then 2 on founder led growth. Because I think that if you do build a strong brand and you create a media brand that ties back to your company, community engagement, involvement, generating that community of folks who aren't just users and customers, and you tie that with the partners, the people who are influential in that space. Those three kind of really work together. And then the founder-led growth is the last one that I added there. I'm a big believer in personal brands in B2B that can drive so much growth. We've seen it with brands like Gong, where, Udi, Devin Reed, Chris Orlob, and others that I still associate, even though some of those folks have moved on from the company, the brand that they built and the way that they distributed content through their founder, executives, leaders can play a big role in the brand that you build, the community that you facilitate, and building those partnerships out in the community. So that's kind of my breakdown. I might be a weird one in the way that I distribute those compared to other guests, though.
No, I love it. I love it. Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look. So here is how the community as a whole has decided to distribute their pennies, and I'm going to overlay your data on top of it, so you can see how your data, your investment of those 100 pennies contrasts against the community as a whole. When you look at this chart, what jumps out?
I would say, obviously the brand led versus sales led is almost, exactly opposite
Opposite.
there. And I think, the reason I think I kind of flip on that is even someone who spent 10 years, actually more than that, 14 or 15, when you my B2B tech sales as well as my agency sales, spent a lot of time with just the sales hat on. But I know how freaking hard it is to sell when you don't have a
Right.
brand that's been built. And so this is coming from me kind of swinging the other way, having spent, over a dozen years in sales myself. And I think it's influenced by that experience of selling without a brand behind me. I learned to sell myself, sell the value, understand the problems, those sorts of things that we do as sellers. But I can tell you, it's a whole lot easier when you're pushing that boulder kind of down the hill as opposed to up.
Couldn't agree more with you. I could not agree more with you. And I tell the founders that build the brand first before you put that BDR on the call, right? Because
Yep.
it's just their job becomes so much more difficult when they're just fighting an uphill battle. Well, thank you so much, Logan, for joining us. This was very, very insightful, and I'm sure our community is going to appreciate you sharing a few nuggets with them.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.